Welcome to Masters of Influence. I'm your host, or one of your co-hosts, I should say, Jeff Lair. I host this together with Joe Rojas. And today we are premiering a new format that we're trying where we talk a bit about some of the big stories going on around us, some of the things that we see that demonstrate some of the power dynamics and highlight some of the inconsistencies, highlight some of the ways power is being used and manipulated. And we're doing this because we think it's interesting. So we think you might find it interesting. And in this episode, we started off really jumping right into the Qatari plane issue, and some of the comments that Trump made about the Clinton Foundation back when he was running against Hillary Clinton. So without further ado, let's move on to the podcast.
I know my favorite that I saw today. They made a deal with Qatar, and it was like a $20 million deal, right? That they made, whatever it was. I can't remember what it was, but it's a video of Donald Trump saying how those people are killers and rapists and murderers, and how can we take their money?
Saudi Arabia giving $25 million, Qatar, all of these countries. You talk about women and women's rights. So these are people that push gays off buildings. These are people that kill women and treat women horribly, and yet you take their money. So I'd like to ask you right now, why don't you give back the money that you've taken from certain countries that treat certain groups of people so horribly? Why don't you give back the money? I think it would be a great gesture.
We should give their money back. And then on the next to it is a video of him saying, "Why are you asking me about the plane? They're giving it to the Air Force. Why is it wrong? There's nothing wrong with it."
The Pentagon announced that it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You know, you to get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? They're giving the United States Air Force a jet, okay? And it's a great thing. We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter. You're not smart enough. But for you to go into a subject about a jet that was given to the United States Air Force, which is a very nice thing.
Yeah. What are you talking about, right? It's literally side by side, these two videos.
Well, this thing that Clinton did that was also inappropriate, where he was apparently renting out one of the bedrooms in the White House, like the Lincoln Room or something like that. And so they were like, it wasn't exactly renting out, but it was like, hey, if you give us a big enough donation, you can come sleep in the White House, right?
He was doing the $5 million have lunch with the president thing.
Well, everybody does that though. Everybody, normally the money goes to the party and the re-election campaigns, not to the president's pocket. What's different about what's happening here is that these are actually payments to the president rather than to the campaign. So these aren't campaign donations. These are payments to the president in order to have access and get things passed, which in normal cases is referred to as bribery. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that having these $1 million lunches with donors is a good idea or that that's legitimate. It is standard practice. So it's hard to say, right? I think it should not happen, but it is standard practice. What is not standard practice is renting out the bedroom in the White House. So the point is that the Republicans lost their shit about Clinton renting out this bedroom. Like, how dare he, right? The impropriety, and okay, the outrage was manufactured, but the concept was right. That's crossing the line. It's clearly crossing the line, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. But let's think about it. Spending a couple $1,000s to rent a bedroom, if that influences the president, what does a $400 million plane do, or all of the buying of cryptocurrency, or the transfers of money to the executive club. Isn't that what it's called? Like, or the executive wing? You know, this his new social club in Washington D.C.
Oh no, is that what it
Yeah,
said?
so I have to look up the name, but I think it's called the executive, the executive wing or the executive lounge. Anyway, I'll look it up. But this thing is like $500 to 500, not $500. Are you kidding me? $500,000 to join, and then I don't know how much you have to spend to be there, right? But basically, it's so that you have access to the Trump family and lawmakers. So they're all members. And then if you want to hang out with these people, you can spend $500,000 to join so that you can go to that club too.
It is just like beyond grift. It's, because grift is just like, oh, I'm gonna steal like, like the stuff that people aren't gonna know. This is like straight up just corruption, mob style, straight up open.
And here's the thing, right?
one-
I found the name of it, right? It's called the executive branch. So what, like, you might as well just say, this is where you deposit the envelopes with the cash, right? Like, what?
He makes
Why
it simple.
bother with having it be? You could just say, make the name just, this is the bribery department for the president. You know, just come here, give us money, and we'll listen to you and do stuff, because that's the way we do things now in this country of fairness, or some kind of bullshit something.
It's like living in bizarro world. It's, when the director of Homeland Security doesn't know what habeas corpus is,
Or the president says, I do not know if I have to uphold the Constitution. I mean,
I have to
there
laugh,
are
right?
few
'Cause
things
why
that you
do you
really have
laugh?
to
I
know
would
to
have
be
to cry.
president, right? Like, there are not a lot. There are actually not a lot of criteria, right? You have to be elected, and then you have to take an oath of office. And when you take that oath of office, you have to repeat back the fact that you will uphold the Constitution. And you have to swear on whatever the hell you want. I don't know, a Bible or a can of Coke or a Big Mac, whatever you want to swear on.
Well,
That's what you swear on. And he did that. And now he says, I don't
No,
know.
he-
Do
no,
I
he
have
did-
to
he
uphold the
did not.
Constitution?
He did not swear on anything.
It doesn't matter, dude. Like, the thing
I
that
know,
you swear on,
but
I realize, look,
Yeah.
I realize that for religious people, like, having a Bible and putting your hand on it means something. It doesn't mean anything. It's a book and
Oh,
it's a
yes.
hand. It means Zippo,
know.
right? So here's the fact. Hold on. Here's the thing. The thing that does mean something is when the justice says, hey, do you promise that you're going to uphold the Constitution? And you say yes, that's a legal obligation. I don't give a damn what you put your hand on. Like, if that makes you feel good, like supported, oh, I have my hand on a big ass book that nobody reads. Okay, cool. I'm happy for you. But that's not actually the important part. The important part is when in front of the legal establishment, you say, yes, I am here
Yes.
to uphold the Constitution because that is exactly my job description.
But the reason why I'm saying he swore on nothing is not so much the importance of whether his hand was on the Bible, or it was, I'm guessing that the reason why he didn't have his hand on the Bible when he was swearing in is because he didn't want it to burst into flames. Because he knew he was lying when he said yes
No.
to the answers to the
No,
question.
you got it all wrong. You're living in this fantasy world where these things matter, right? Here's the real reason. He believes that he is God and that he wrote the book. So he
There you
actually
go.
doesn't have to put his hand on it because it's his own damn book.
His own book. There you go.
And
There
in
you go.
fact,
That's,
if you
that's
want,
exactly right.
he'll sell you one with a gold leafed cover and his
Okay.
face on it. Oh,
And it has a copy of the Constitution in it. The one, his gold leaf covered one with his face on it, which actually exists. It's a copy of the Constitution.
constitutionally, he's not entirely sure that he has anything to do with.
Yeah, or that he has to uphold. So he's like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I have to uphold it.
By the way, did you hear about this couple who bought a Trump watch?
The what? The rump watch?
Holy cow. So, I mean, there's so many things wrong with the video, right? First of all, it's like this watch that looks cheesy and cheap. And it's pink with this weird overlay. I mean, it is the ugliest watch you've ever seen. Okay, fine. So, but this guy buys it for his wife for a special thing. Now, I ask you, have you ever bought your wife anything with a politician's name on it for a special occasion? Like, has that ever occurred to you? That you're like, oh, this is so special because it has a politician's name on it. Has that ever happened to you?
It's the Barack Obama special edition.
Special,
pendant.
yeah,
Pendant.
exactly.
Pendant for
Pendant
the
that I'm,
my wife for anniversary.
what, like, what are we talking about here, right? Okay, so anyway, so he buys this watch for his wife.
Pettit bought the watch after hearing an ad like that one on the radio with the president's voice hawking the watches. And I was curious, so I went onto the website. GetTrumpWatches.com. Pettit picked out the pink inauguration First Lady model.
It has the pink and it has little fireworks on it.
Melanie Pettit likes the style, but it's what this watch does not have that makes it stand out.
And then this watch arrives, and he's like, I wanted it to be special, and so I gave it to her, and she opened it up, and
I noticed it right away. The T is missing. It just says RUMP.
so it should say Trump
Should say Trump.
instead.
It says rump.
And the beautiful thing, the most beautiful thing is he said,
And we had expected that he would have the integrity of the president of the United States.
and you know what? It does. I mean, is there anything more perfect?
No, not like I could like when when she says that in the video, like it is the funniest line in that video is that I thought it would have the integrity and the integrity because it's like it does.
It does.
What are you?
It made me sad the other day. This kid came to the door, and he's trying to get me to sign up for some Republican thing. Looked at him, I'm like, you're so young. How do you become so divorced from reality and so hopeless at such a young age? I don't
Well,
know.
and that's really the thing that when they went after the Department of Education, the reason why they're going after the Department of Education and they're going after all the influencers and they're going is because that's who they're targeting. They
Yeah.
can get you that young and they can get you on board then. You're in the cult. And it is a cult. Make no mistake about it. Nobody should be under any illusion that it is a party. It is not a party. MAGA is a cult. And it is not the Republican Party. It is a cult. Now, if you're in the Republican Party and you don't join the cult, they will excommunicate you. And when you get excommunicated, you will get no money, you will get no nothing, you will get no support, you will get nothing. So it's join or die.
Yeah. Or become a
And-
Democrat, which is such a terrible option for some people, because I definitely prefer the Democrats over the Republicans, but I fully understand that somebody has a different position, right? But it doesn't seem like the only two positions that should be available to you are batshit crazy and Democrat. Like,
Yeah.
you got to have, which, goes back to our conversation the other day about we need more parties. We need more. There has to be some way to encourage these third parties so that it's just not as it's just crazy. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
because if not, the only place that you're left in is batshit crazy land. And if you don't join batshit crazy land now, it's so interesting, I was watching some congressional hearing the other day with the Department of Homeland Chrissy Nome thing. The senator that was speaking to her, she said, do you know that the ice jackets are available on Etsy for $25 and people can just buy them and go out? And people are doing that. They're buying the ice jackets and just going to the mall just for the fuck of it. And
Wow.
it's not illegal. And it's insane. They are creating a condition inside of which they can then call on their cult to do things. See, because when you have people pull people off the street in plain clothes, how are you supposed to, and refusing to identify themselves, by the way. Not only are they pulling people off the street and plain, you create a condition where a mob of citizens can come up and say, hey, and now they can buy the ice jackets at Etsy, and they can just pull out of a car and grab somebody off the street because they look a particular way and say, oh yeah, we're from ICE, we're going to take, and they take them and do whatever. You create a condition where that can happen. And then
yeah. I mean, that's so now we have, and here's the thing, you're going to get pardoned by the president.
absolutely.
Because I mean, he pardoned all these people from January 6th, and then somebody I was reading this week got like a big payout, like one of the January 6th people who were arrested got
Well,
this big
she
payout
was
for like
shot. She was shot. The family got $5 million, and they're trying to arrest the officer that shot her. It was a clean shoot. It was declared a clean shoot. They breached.
Yeah.
He was protecting all the senators and everybody that was in the Capitol. He didn't know whether that person was armed or not armed. And once the
how
thing
is
got
it
breached,
supposed to work, right? So the idea is anybody can storm the Capitol, or anybody can storm the Capitol if Trump asks them to storm the Capitol.
that is correct.
Okay. So basically, whatever, like it's okay to break a law and shoot people and kill people as long as
The president said
the
it was
president
okay.
said it's okay. Good to know. And now I can go buy an ice jacket and harass people who look a little bit, different than I do. Because let's face it, Joe, I am a white male, so anybody who has any color in their skin looks a little different than me. Look, and I don't have much hair either, so I could dress myself up in one of those ice jackets and just walk around
That's all you got to do.
knock people over. And if they arrest me, Trump's gonna just say, "Hey, he was just doing what he had to do." I'm not
He's
gonna,
just
for clarity, I'm
Yeah.
not going to do
He
that.
was just a concerned citizen.
I'm just a
That's what
concerned
they will-
citizen
That's
out
what they will say.
harassing people who have slightly darker skin than I do. Somebody was saying they was talking to a friend of mine who works at a law firm in the city, and they just lost one of their paralegals because she's tired of getting harassed on the train by ICE officials. It happened to her twice. I assume they were real ones, not, mall cop ones, where she didn't have like proof of citizenship, because, ladies and gentlemen, you're not required to carry proof of citizenship, right?
Yeah.
And I don't carry proof of citizenship. Do you carry proof of citizenship? I don't have any proof. I don't know, maybe my driver's license, but
Yeah,
you can get a driver's license if you're not
but
a
you know
citizen.
what? I'm not required to show my driver's license. And
No,
if
but
they
you
ask
can
me,
even
I
get a
wouldn't.
driver's license. My wife had a driver's license before she was a citizen. Like, there's no requirement of citizenship for a driver's license. I don't know how you're supposed to do,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, so she got harassed twice. So she just said, no, it's not worth it anymore. I'm not going to go on the Metro North to come into Manhattan. I'm just going to work close to home. And what kind of situation, like, that's like Soviet Union style crazy, right? That's a whole new
Papers,
level.
please. Papers, please.
I
That's
just
that, and it's about to get worse. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Purge.
heard of what?
Well, the purge of immigrants, right? So all the Republican Party keeps talking about we're gonna do a purge of all the immigrants, right? We're gonna do a purge. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Purge.
No.
Have you ever seen that movie? I've never seen it either, but the premise of the movie is that they declare like this presidential decree that one day a year, there's too many people on the planet, so one day a year you could just kill whoever you want.
Oh.
And it's
Oh,
like,
damn it.
and it's
Okay, we're definitely cutting this out. I don't want to give them ideas.
right. You could just kill whoever you want, and you're like no repercussions, no nothing. You can just and so that's how you control the population. That's how you keep the population down. And what my friend Mark said is like, look, all these like crazy right-wing organizations, they're gearing up for that kind of stuff, because that's kind of like when you keep talking about that and you keep signaling that, and that
Yeah.
that's what's going to happen, and that's what the political party is saying, that's what the cult is saying right now. It's like, hey,
We
get ready, because we're gonna take these people out one way or the other.
Yeah.
They're going out, but we're getting rid of them one way or the other. Right now, he's terrified because his wife is an immigrant, and she has to leave the country because she works for a not-for-profit that does like global work, and he doesn't know that she'll be able to come back.
Yeah,
He
well,
doesn't
my
know
wife's
she's
an
able to
immigrant.
come back.
Did she have
Yeah.
citizenship?
No, she's a resident. So he
Yeah,
thinks,
and if she's working for a global organization, honestly, I'll tell you the truth.
it's a global organization that's funded by USAID, and they lost their fund, but they have a big endowment, so they're okay. And so she has to go now for a fundraising trip, and
I
he
change.
thinks
Yeah, I mean,
he thinks what's going to happen is they won't let her back. She's going to go back to country of origin, and he's just going to move there. He's gonna leave. He's like, I'm not gonna be without my wife, and she's the kind of person that she's like, I'm not backing down, so I'm gonna go do what I got to do. So that's
well,
but that's where we are.
like they're searching they're searching your phones and things when you come back in the country.
Well,
Now, even if you're a citizen,
if you're a citizen, you saw what
I'm gonna
happened to
change
Hassan,
my
right?
I'm changing my screen to say, Trump is an idiot on the plane on the way back, right? And let them search it. Like I don't understand. What are they gonna do? Because
Well, they're gonna interrogate you. That's what happened
they
to
can interrogate me all day long.
Yeah,
Except I'll be tired and probably want to go home. So maybe I won't do that. But
you'll be cranky.
yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I think Trump's an idiot. So what are you gonna do about it?
You saw this thing with Hassan Piker, right? Where Hassan Piker got
Talk about it.
detained coming back in. So Hassan Piker, he's like a left wing political commentator who runs a Twitch channel. He's like part of this young generation that there's a lot more of on the right, going out and going to colleges and going and trying to influence kids and trying to bring them into the party and get them all hyped up and it's all like they're using marketing tactics with merch and this and that to pull them into the Republican Party. And Hassan, he's a commentator. He was coming back into the country. He went for Mother's Day, went out. He's a citizen of the United States, born here in New Jersey, right? And so he's been very vocal about what's happening in Gaza and all that stuff. He has a global entry. They pulled him off the global entry line, and they knew exactly who he was.
Yeah.
They interrogated him about his views on President Trump. And he said, you know what? If this is the way they're going to try and play the game, I hate the fucking guy. Here's all the terrible things. He just went all in. He's like, I think he's an asshole because of this and da 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 da. He just went all in and told them exactly what he thought. And he's like, now what? What are you going to do? I'm a citizen. For my views, are you going to? And so they kept him for hours and hours and hours, kept interrogating him about Gaza, interrogating him about his views on it, the whole deal. And he said eventually they let him go. But he said, I can't imagine, number one, if I wasn't a citizen, how this would have gone. And number two, if I wasn't who I am, even if I was a citizen, what could have happened? Because I have the money to fight this
Yeah.
and to deal with it the way it needs to get dealt with. But for somebody who doesn't, what happens?
Good question. What happens?
And
Because
so, yeah,
what happens? You know, and we're now at a state where it seems to me that what happens is you get shunted off to some detention center somewhere and nobody knows where you are and you get disappeared like we used to talk about happening in the dark days of South America, right? Like, isn't that
yeah,
where we are, right? Isn't that what happens? And then you get denied access or they do the thing that they're doing now, because it's not that you get denied shit, right? Like, you can have it. It's just $10 a minute to make a phone call, or you
yeah,
can file a petition, but there's an extra 1,000 pages that you have to go through to file the petition, and you can't possibly gather all of the paperwork that you need to file the petition while you are in jail. So therefore, you can't actually get it done. But nobody's actually preventing you from doing anything, right?
no,
And
no,
that's
no.
the new thing, right? It's like the Republicans are cutting, what is it, like $500 billion out of Medicare, and even more than that out of Medicaid. And the way that they're doing it is by making it impossible to complete the paperwork. But this
Well,
whole detaining people thing and detaining people without rights and this, oh, I don't know what habeas corpus is. Like, habeas corpus is the right of the government to
of the president,
of
of
the
the president,
president to deport people.
to
It
remove
isn't.
people. Yeah.
And apparently due process now is optional. A lot of the things that are being implemented and the desire, the tax policies that are being put in place are going to raise taxes on those with low income. It's going to cut Medicaid, and it's going to cut taxes on the rich. It's going to increase the national debt by $3.8 million, which, by the way, this is also very interesting.
Trillion, you meant, right?
What did I say?
Million.
Yeah.
Great. Trillion.
It's like 3.8 million a day or something. No,
Yeah, yeah,
$3.8
yeah.
million. I was looking at some research on this, and there's been this dramatic shift. Do you know who the majority of people are who collect the interest on our national debt? Americans. Now, who are the Americans who own the national debt? Are they people with savings or without savings?
Without savings.
No, the
Or
people
with
who
who own the national
debt
debt with savings. Yeah,
are
with
people
savings.
with
Yeah, people
savings.
with savings. People with
Okay,
savings.
so now
and-
the people with
Yeah.
savings, are the people
Yeah.
with savings better
Yeah.
off or less better off?
They're better off.
They're better off
Way
because they have
better-
savings, right?
Way better
Okay,
off. Yeah.
No. So the interesting thing is, when back in Eisenhower, when we built things like the highway system that is an incredible benefit to the entire country, the marginal tax rate was 92%. Okay, so that was like the ultimate high rate. You know, once you're over X million dollars, you know, the next dollar is taxed at 92%. And so people who made a lot of money were basically funding the government. Okay, so there was this fund from everybody who had money, and it was going into the government. Now, today, that's changed significantly. So the government is in massive debt and has to borrow money. Who are they borrowing money from? They're borrowing money from people with money. So that means that they're now paying interest back to the people who are lending the country money. So now, instead of the rich supporting the country through taxes, the rich is lending money to the country, and they're
being supported
collecting
by the country.
interest
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
from all of the people who don't have savings, and that's coming from the tax increases that they're currently pushing through. And people don't understand this. I didn't fully understand this, but the entire thing is just a transfer towards those with savings. Full disclosure, I am one with savings. So like, I'm benefiting from all of this, but it just feels completely wrong. It's wrong because you're really taking all of the money out of the economic engine. The people who spend money are the ones who drive the economy forward, and you're taking money out of their pockets and you're putting it into the pockets of the people who already have money, who are saving it, who are not spending all of their money, which is slowing down the economy and making life harder for the people who are earning money at the bottom of the scale, right? Which is, can you hear that? No? Okay, it's fine. Which is bizarre, right? But that's the situation that we're currently in. So this idea of like increasing the debt, we're reducing Medicaid, we're reducing support for families, we're increasing their debt burden in order to pay interest to people who already have money.
I'm glad we're talking about this because and I struggle with it sometimes, but most people don't understand this. They don't get it. They don't get what's happening.
Well, I think more
And
people
so
are stuck in like the headlines. Like if you look at one of the links that you gave me, right? It's from the House, and the things that they're talking about, they're talking about how they're protecting Americans from a 22% tax hike. Well, that's because they created this tax cut, and it was a temporary tax cut, and they're preventing that tax cut from coming in. But that tax cut benefited the wealthy, right? Saving average Americans from a $1,700 tax hike. I'm not sure where that comes from, because according to the budgeting office, central budgeting office, there's an increase in taxes to those, earning less than $20,000. So maybe that's not average or something, right? But like there are all of these marketing stories that they're telling, and people just focus on these headlines, and they're not looking at what it means. And I think that it's so complicated to understand what it means, and there's no source that's telling the truth. There used to be a disclaimer before non-factual media that says this is not factual. And
this is entertainment.
do you know where that came from?
The disclaimer?
Yeah, do you know where that
No.
started?
No.
This was because of Orson Welles and The War of the World.
Oh, the World of Worlds. Yeah,
And he
yeah.
broadcast this thing, and he saw it as entertainment, but like the world, everybody thought we were being invaded from Mars, because they
By Mars.
they didn't comprehend this new thing. It was like, oh, if it comes from the radio, it must be true. And he didn't have
Yeah.
anything on it saying that it wasn't true until everybody believed it and started preparing for it. So after that, everybody was like, oh, now we have to be careful, and we have to be sure that we talk about the fact that something is entertainment or not, or factual or not, or at least an attempt to be factual or not. And we've kind of gotten rid of that, right? Because
Yeah.
now all this stuff that's coming from the House is not factual. Stuff that's coming from the White House is not factual. Stuff that's
This
coming from
website
Fox News
is-
is not factual.
This is a .gov website, and if you read this website that I just sent you, it's like the big beautiful bill, and it does this, and here's all the amazing things that it's gonna do for you. But wait, there's more. That's how it reads. To me,
Right.
it reads like a sales page.
You're right. And I think that there's, so, all right, I'm going to relate this back to something else I realized the other day. I'm going to relate this to yoga teaching, because I'll tell you what, you go to a yoga class, and, because I teach yoga, I listen to the cues in a different way than people who just practice yoga. And what I've noticed is that a lot of cues are pretty bad. They're not good at explaining what to do or cueing you through a sequence, right? But people don't blame the leader. People don't blame the one giving the cues. They don't blame the teacher. The assumption is that the teacher knows what they're doing, and I'm insecure.
I'm the
I
bad
don't
one.
know what I'm
I'm
doing.
different.
So it's
Yes,
because
I'm
I didn't understand, not because the teacher did something wrong. I think it's the same thing here that we're saying, oh, okay, my taxes are going up, but it's probably because I did something wrong, or I didn't understand it, or I this or I that, because I trust the God who's in office has my best interest at heart. So I trust that he's legitimate, so it must be me.
me.
And I think there's a lot of that going on around, well, they're all telling me that this is good for me. They're all telling me that it's working. They're all telling me that the price is going down, so the price is going down, right? And they're not getting the fact that no, actually the price is not going down. It's not just you. It's actually bad.
Yeah.
But they keep telling them that it's good. And
It's like, you see, Don't Look Up.
yeah, it's like don't
Yeah.
like this impending thing. Just don't look up, right?
Don't look up. Don't look up. Don't look up.
But if you look at these right wing pundits, it just don't read the bill. Like, don't try and understand. And it's even worse than that. Like they're saying, oh, don't get an education. Like education is bad. Education is
Yeah.
bad. Everybody, like whatever you do, don't get an education.
They're at colleges saying that going to college is no good.
Right. You're wasting your money on education. Don't get educated. Harvard is a terrible, terrible place because all of these people, they're going to teach you how to think. So whatever so we're going to shut them down. Go to Trump University where you can spend lots of money and get nothing for it. That's okay. But don't get an education because then you're going to understand that the stuff we are doing is hurting you. There is a reason why Trump doesn't do well with educated people because they look at things and realize that this is broken. Sorry,
They do.
that was a rant, but
I love it. I look, we have to rant. It's time to rant. Our education system was broken already because it was designed and built to produce factory workers and not to produce critical thinkers. And what we need now in this country is critical thinkers because we've evolved beyond building shit in factories. Like, the global economy worked the way it was. There was nothing wrong with it. We just need to focus on a different type of worker, a knowledge worker. And the attack that education is under right now is brutal. Like the Department of Education is being dismantled. They are
but I
trying
think
to
that part that they're dismantling is the thinking part.
Yeah,
They're
well,
not-
they're
they're not
dismantling. No. Well,
they're
they're dismantling the
part.
part. They're trying to take the money that you would have used for the Department of Education and apply it to charter schools. But really, if you really read between the line, is religious Christian charter schools, not just religious schools. They have to be Christian
Correct.
religious charter schools that are going to push the narrative of the regime so that we can get them early on so that way you eliminate all thinking. This is the same thing that destroyed Islam. Islam destroyed during the Golden Age, destroyed everything that was happening and all the knowledge and everything that was coming out of the Arab states. It was the same thing. Religion that destroyed it is the same thing that is coming after this. Because as long as you can keep the people dumb, you can keep them enslaved.
You can keep them in. That's right. That's absolutely right.
As long as you can keep them dumb, you can keep them enslaved. As soon as they start thinking, you've got a problem. And it's what happened then, and we saw the outcome, and we still see the outcome of that today. That's still playing out 2,000 years later. And that's the way it's going to play out here if we don't do something about it. right? You don't see it playing out like that in Scandinavia. You don't see it playing out like that in Japan. You don't see it playing out like that
Well,
where the
yeah,
focus is on.
there is a and there is a thing that happens, right? So religion exists to explain things that you can't explain, and it functions as a government to control people and control their thinking.
Yeah,
That's why religion exists. Okay, like I hate to break it to everybody, but there's no God writing books who's sending shit down to you. Like, that doesn't exist. It was people who wrote books, okay, and they created churches and they interpreted things, and that's, and it's fine. And when I say there's no God, maybe there's a God. I don't know if there's a God or there's not a God, but there's no God writing books. Okay, there's the whole
yeah,
Catholic Church, Christianity, or Islam. That's all made up. That is all made up by human beings as a form of government and thought control. And what happens when you get educated is you look at that and you say, oh, they said there was a man in the clouds, but I went up above the clouds and there are no men up there. So, that's interesting. Or they say there's hell below the earth, but we went down there and there's no hell, right? So you start to see these things. The sun revolves around the earth. Well, wait a minute. I went up there. It's not revolving around. The earth is flat. No, wait, no, it's not, right? So you start to understand that actually a lot of these things that are taught are
yeah,
are just made up. And so you move away from religion because there are other ways to explain things. Physics does a pretty gosh darn good job of explaining why airplanes fly. You
yeah.
don't actually need a divine, intervention to make a freaking airplane fly.
You don't.
Fluid dynamics, ladies and gentlemen. So what happens is, as you get educated, you become less interested in religion. And so religion has less of a grasp on you. And if you're looking at a state that wants to control people through religious belief, you can't have education. So
You
if you
can't.
talk about Scandinavia, they're not particularly religious. I don't mean that they don't have religion. People have religion. They believe in things. Of course they do. Right? They use these as
Yeah,
guiding principles for thought, right? And I meditate, which is called prayer in some situations. I'm not saying that there isn't spirituality, but I'm saying that the decisions that we make around what kind of fuels that we use, how we design our airplanes, how we treat people are a function of logic and study and scientific endeavors and thinking and using what I would say is your God-given ability to think and analyze and
yeah,
and
yeah,
do stuff, rather than relying on some book that somebody wrote like a million years ago to be the determining factor in what you do. But you cannot control people the same way when they are educated. So the
absolutely not.
first step, if you want to use religion as a control mechanism, you have to not educate people, or you have to educate people within religion. And charter schools, there's this mythology around, oh, they're so much better. No, they're not. They are schools that have like some sort of focus, and more control by people who want thought control. Sure, there's some charter schools that are bad, and there's some charter schools that are good, but the charter school is no panacea. It's just a name for something, right?
Yes,
Like, all of these things are ways to control thinking. And what we should be doing is just investing lots of money in making people smarter and getting them an education. And I'll tell you what, I got a good critical thinking education. My kids are getting a good critical thinking education. The people who are not getting good critical thinking educations are the people who are listening to the people who are telling them don't go to school or get
yeah,
homeschooled. All right, another little rant here. What the hell is up with homeschooling? Because my son takes classes with names I don't even understand what they are, like multivariate, calculus, aerodynamic, something, orbital dynamic shit. I don't even know. I can't tell you what he is studying sometimes. He's looking at a master's,
And you're
and I'm educated.
smart.
Let's be clear, right? I've been through the system. He's looking at a master's at MIT in aeronautics and astronautics, right? So I'm not entirely sure what that means, right? So how am I going to homeschool this kid? Like, if I'd homeschooled him, his math would have been stuck at like 2 + 2 = 4.
Yeah.
And what's cool is if you multiply 2 times 2, you also get 4. Right? So there's no way my brain could have taught his brain to do the kinds of things that he's doing now. So the only reason people do homeschooling is to make sure that their kids do not get any smarter or know anything more than they do, which for me is patently absurd because there's no way I am not going to limit my kids. Both of my kids do stuff that I can't do.
Yeah.
And I love it. I'm in awe of it.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be, right? You should create an opportunity for your kids to be able to think and learn and grow way beyond where you are. And we need to gear, if we're really looking at the future of so now I'm going to get patriotic, right? If you really are focused on the future of the nation and where the nation is going, then the place to concentrate in is education. That's where you concentrate. Where you concentrate is in education because you build good thinkers and you spend your money. It's so interesting. I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson talk the other day. He said, look, when you do research for the sake of research, when you're talking to a true scientist that's out doing research, you're not going to see the result of anything that they do next year or in 5 years. It's going to be 30 years from now when somebody looks back and goes, oh, I can use that for this. I can build this with that research that happened 30 years ago. But you have to be able to fund that research now because that research is what's going to create a breakthrough in 30 years. But you can't expect to see the fruit of that research in your lifetime because it may not happen.
Well, there's even if you look at things like all the shit we can do now with DNA was research that was in the 90s. And there was this, I think it was Clinton who had this whole map the genome project. Billions of dollars on this stuff, right? And you could say, well, you can do it for $10. You can send your thing in and they map your genome.
They spent millions of dollars, and their theory was completely wrong because what they thought is it's going to be so complicated.
No, wait, hold on. It is exactly that complicated. The theory was 100% correct. It was exactly that complicated. It cost billions of dollars.
The
first time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now that you know how to do it, right? You open up all of these opportunities. And now you know how to do it. And everybody's like, well, wait a minute. We could just do it faster. We could do it this way. We could do it that way. And now we can do all these other things, right? But it took that initial investment. You had to get over the hump. You couldn't be where we are today without that initial investment.
Without that initial investment.
And so that's what you're saying. It's like that mapping that we did, that DNA mapping that we did that was incredibly complicated and that cost billions of dollars and took tons of time has allowed us to now create a process that does it for $10.30. I know, I'm making that up. But that's what that's developed. And because we can now do that, there are all these other things that we've been able to come up with, like CRISPR and mRNA and all of this stuff that has developed out of that.
Yeah, and mRNA is what allowed us to create a vaccine that fast.
Correct, right? That's the mRNA vaccine.
But if you didn't do that research 30 years ago, then you couldn't do
You
that
wouldn't be able to
today.
do that today.
You wouldn't be able to do that today. And it's the same for everything else that you look at, right? Like the quantum computing stuff that we're doing now, a lot of it is based on the dual slit experiment from 1935.
Well, and now you've got, and even if you look at the quantum computing that we're doing now, it's like, what is this stuff, right? You got to have this like
Yeah.
massive refrigeration thing. It's like a whole building so that you get like one little chip that generates qubits that operate in this random environment. And so you have to program it with like this probabilistic programming that does this weird stuff. And then and then the only thing it can do now is calculate this uncalculatable problem, and it can do it really fast. No, this problem has zero value to anybody, right? All it does is prove that the damn thing is working and that it's working really fast. And we're putting
Yeah.
billions of dollars into this, but I'll tell you what, at some point, this is like 30 years from now,
It'll fit in your pocket.
well, it's going to do something unbelievable. We're going to be using this
Yeah.
technology to do something that we can't even imagine is possible today.
Correct.
And if you stop the thinking because you're like, well, I'm not sure where this is going, or we need results right now, or I don't want to invest.
Well, if
in
you want to
research.
see what the future looks like, just look at Afghanistan today.
If you
because the
don't
golden-
invest in these things, absolutely.
Yeah, the golden age was then. Algebra came from there. The names of most of the stars
Well,
came from there. All the
the most important diffusion of information in Europe was the pilgrimage to Santiago in Spain. So the Camino de Santiago, and because the Arabs controlled Spain and the Europeans were in the north, and so all the Europeans came down, and then they had to walk this whole thing, and so they had to hang out with all the Arabs, and because of that, they learned things like little things like the zero and math and alphabets and really being able to communicate, like these little things that are there, right? Because the Arabs were freaking smart, man. Like they had
Brilliant.
all of this stuff figured out. They had algebra, like you just said, like all of this. And so the Europeans learned it all by walking through Spain. It was all the
Yes.
criminals that they sent on the pilgrimages down into Spain who picked up all this stuff from the Arabs and then eventually brought it back all the way up into Europe, right? So the Europeans were like, oh wow, algebra, that's kind of cool, right?
That's
And then
kinda
that
cool, right?
led to all of these other things that
I know, but then that whole thing got destroyed by religion.
so
And so if you want to look, yeah,
that's why it's so sad, because you look at how much knowledge and capability depends on Arabic thinking, and then to crush that with religion. And here we are, we can see it, and we know that it's there, and we know what's going to happen. And so what we're doing is we're crushing the ability to think in favor of religion
right now,
right now.
today.
Even though
in
we know where
2025,
that goes.
we know where that goes. We know what the outcome is. So that's my rant. Keep thinking, people. Just keep thinking.
Keep
Don't
thinking.
don't let them take your thought. Because that's what
Read the bills.
they're trying to usurp your thoughts and insert their thoughts
And
in
I
your brain.
think it's important to realize that this is a religious thing.
Yeah.
We are talking about a cult. And so
Yeah.
we're not going to win by telling people that they're wrong. We have to listen. We have to approach it with some sort of understanding. This isn't about being outraged or upset. It's about understanding, and it's about understanding how we
Yeah.
can build connections rather than stay in this crazy polarized situation.
Antagonistic. It's so interesting that you said that, because what it made me think of is how do you help somebody get out of a cult?
So well,
and-
there are actually
Yeah.
strategies, and the
Yeah,
way you
there
help
are
people
strategies.
get out of a cult is you listen.
Yeah.
You let
Yeah.
them talk, and you give them an alternative story, but they have to discover it. You can't force it on them, and
Yeah,
it
and
will happen. And my point around when do people start feeling the pain? Is eventually they start feeling the pain and they start looking around and saying, wait, this is painful. Is this really right? And I think that that's when we have to be welcoming and not tell people how stupid
Yeah.
they are.
How stupid they are, how stupid they were. You know,
Right.
you have to welcome them and say, "Oh my God, you can see now. Come on."
So
Let
anyway,
me
so we
you know,
can
how can I help you? Yeah,
chat about that a
that's
bit
that's
next
good.
week,
Yeah.
and we can have a conversation about that right here. And if you have any ideas around how we get people out of a cult, let us know. Or any experts that you know of around how to get people out of a cult, let's
Oh,
have a
that would be great.
conversation with
Yeah,
them,
right next yeah.
and we will talk about it next time right here on Masters of Influence. See you
All
later,
right.
Joe.
See you later.